Well, our first speaker today will be Domagoj Maric, AI Customer Delivery Manager at Pontis Technology. Domagoj will be presenting modern web data extraction, techniques, tools, legal and ethical considerations. In this session, he will explore the methodologies and tools for efficient web crawling and scraping to meet the growing demand for data in AI applications. Domagoj will also address the ethical and legal aspects of web data extraction, including best practices for polite crawling and ensuring compliance with privacy and intellectual property laws. Please welcome Domagoj Maric to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ivana, for the introduction. It's nice to see you all in such a high number, given it's the last day of the conference, so I'll try to make it very interesting for you. My name is Domagoj Maric. I come from a company called Pontis Technology in Croatia, so I'm the customer delivery manager. What it means, I'm doing data science, I'm doing AI projects, and I'm ensuring that everything goes smoothly when we're dealing with clients on our projects. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that's close to my heart, more than close to Pontis's heart. Thank you very much. It's about web scraping, web crawling under one umbrella term. It's all called modern web data extraction. So I'll talk a bit about techniques, how to do it, why to do it, when to do it, and how not to get blocked or sued. So we'll talk about legal and ethical implications about that. About me, so I already said Pontis Technology works with data, works with data science projects, and of course, you're all here for a reason. It's a data science conference. We usually need external data. We need data that's on the web, so it's something that's also in Pontis's portfolio. And to give you a bit more context about me, I also have a side business, so I'm doing education. I'm also passionate about knowledge transfer, so Byte Heron is my side job. So you'll also see examples regarding Byte Heron and Pontis Technology. That's about me. And this was the last slide that's business related. Why extract web data? So as I already said, additional external data is always needed for training models, especially now in the field of generative AI, of LLMs, of RAG, and so on. But also outside of data science, when we are looking about business analysis, market research is also a big thing. Sentiment analysis on social media, on various posts, is something that companies do regularly. They monitor brand awareness, so they monitor what people write online about their brand, about their product, about their services, and also price optimization. It's something that's been talked about, I believe, on Wednesday. Don't know how the company is called, but it's something that's popular nowadays. We see at the competitors what are the prices and how can we beat them at that. So that's something that's usually automated by web scraping processes. Data collection automation, of course, data monitoring online, regulatory compliance monitoring, and SEO. SEO, of course, search engine optimization is something that's been automated by web scraping. How it's usually good practice in SEOs to have many outgoing and incoming links. So it's usually been done by scanning all the web domains for dead links and for links which could lead to your web page. That's about the use cases. Now let's get into the meaty stuff. Web crawling, web scraping, to differentiate between these two terms, which are very similar but are connected. They are two parts of a continuous cycle. Web crawling is something that usually search engines do. For example, Google does web crawling by indexing all the pages on the internet. So it's visiting URL addresses, visiting pages, finding them through links, and navigating through the structure of the web, and of course through your own web server. And then we have the web scraping part. It's about extracting data from those web pages. So it's a continuous cycle. The crawler slash scraper, the web data extractor, if you will call it so, visits a page, extracts all data from it, extracts all links from it, and then follows those links recursively to visit all other web pages on the server, and then switches to other domains and so on. So it's a cycle that keeps on repeating. Of course, sometimes when we do the web crawling, it's already been done for us. You'll see about the sitemap part where nowadays usually pages have sitemaps specified, so we do not have to crawl through the whole web page. We can just follow a list of all available URL addresses. So for the start, let's get into the legal part, so the legal and ethical part. The most popular question online about web scraping is web scraping legal, of course? And as all things regarding the legal things in life usually do, it's a gray line, it's a gray zone, and the answer is it depends. But we can evaluate what were the legal implications through rulings in the past, and of course, for example, Ryanair and Meta were two popular cases regarding web scraping and suing web scrapers for extracting data online. It's something that comes up regularly, and it's pretty often to see nowadays. As you can see, both of these cases were from 2023. 2024 was also a chaotic year for these cases, but none of them are very prominent. But the most prominent one that keeps on giving and that keeps on going is the LinkedIn one. You've probably also heard about that. It's regarding a company called HiQ Labs, I think it's the full name, versus LinkedIn in court. So the case goes that HiQ is a company that analyzes employee turnover, so they scraped various LinkedIn profiles, and LinkedIn is the greatest example for a web page you should not scrape. So they have a policy that they ban everyone and they sue everyone. You can get their data if you pay for it, if you get whitelisted, but yeah, web scraping is off the limits. You'll get blocked, you'll have to use proxies and so on, or you get sued 5 years ago. That's what HiQ went through. And yeah, it was a long battle. You can see it was decided first 5 years ago, and then it was overruled. So LinkedIn had an appeal on the court, and then the initial decision was overturned. So yeah, web scraping was legal, but then it was not. But then the last part is it's still in progress. It's many questions are still open. And of course, some laws and rulings that were valid in the US, where this court rulings were done, don't apply for Europe and for Serbia and for Croatia, where I'm from, or for any other country that's not US connected. So yeah, it's a fine and a gray line. It's a gray zone. So we have to be careful if we want to be on the good side of the law and not get banned. So we have various policies regarding web crawling. It's from a paper from Carlos Castillo. Good read, 2004, effective web crawling. And yeah, 20 years ago, it's still relevant. It's still valid. We have 4 policies: selection policy, what to scrape; revisit policy, when to scrape it again for updates; parallelization policy, or concurrency policy, is how do we parallelize those processes to scrape faster, to scrape more; And of course, the most important one, the politeness policy. You'll see that I'm going to repeat the term polite very often today. It's regarding scraping and not to overload the server and to identify yourself and so on. So let's get into the mechanisms on how it works. We as a scraper, what do we do to identify ourselves and to be polite? So we have 6 mechanisms, those are ranked in terms of relevancy, and we'll go through all of them. Robots.txt is a file that's connected to the robot exclusion protocol, as it's called. It's a file that sits on each server, or should sit on every web server, and it tells web crawlers, web scrapers, web crawlers to be exact, on what they are allowed to crawl, index, and what not. It's usually done for search engines, but of course it works also for us as web scraping developers. It's how it looks. Usually we have a syntax that's pretty easy to follow. So user agent, we'll see about user agents. It's the string which we are identifying ourselves with. And then we have disallow root, everything on the server, or disallow nothing, which means everything is allowed. You also have variations, allow everything, allow root, allow nothing, and so on. And you can also exclude robots from a part of the server, something you should not visit. We should not visit, or our web scraping scripts should not visit. How it looks like in the wild. So these are 2 examples, Pontis Technology and the Data Science Conference. Pontis Technology, you can see that everything is permitted. User agent, for all user agents, nothing is disallowed. So it's free play. We can do anything we want, but on pontistechnology.com. But also, you can see a sitemap is given. So we have a list of URLs. We do not need to crawl the whole Pontis page. We can just follow the list of all URLs. And of course, Data Science Conference, the same thing for all user agents. Everything is allowed, but only VP admin, so WordPress admin stuff is disallowed. Everything else is okay. Another more prominent example is my own web page on Byte Heron, and yeah, it has many more examples for the stuff that you are disallowed. But in the end, most of the page you can scrape. My page was done on Squarespace, so this is something you cannot change, unfortunately. But yeah, Squarespace limits those kinds of URLs. Everything else is permitted. And yeah, the most prominent example and probably the longest robots.txt file of any popular web page nowadays is LinkedIn's. And yeah, it's not important what you read in the main part of the robots.txt. It's the comments in the beginning. The use of robots or any other automated means to access LinkedIn without the express permission of LinkedIn is strictly prohibited. Which means if you pay, if you get whitelisted, then you get access to their data. If not, then you can try to scrape it. You can play cat and mouse with them. They'll block you. You'll use proxies. Maybe you'll get a cease and desist letter. Then you ignored it, and then you go to court. And yeah, it's not a promising game with LinkedIn, and any of the connected pages like Facebook is pretty much the same, and so on. The second thing that you should also check are terms of services. So terms and conditions. The small letters that no one reads, of course, but if it's for a project that's important, and if you want to stay on the good part of the good side of the law, then you should also check the terms of service if it's prohibited to access the whole website by automated means. So for example, booking.com, also many court rulings are connected to booking.com, aggregating accommodation data and so on. So booking.com, you're not allowed to monitor, copy, scrape, crawl, download, reproduce, otherwise use anything on our platform for any commercial purpose without written permission of Booking.com or its licensors. So for any commercial purpose, you're not allowed to scrape. How they check if you're doing it for academia, for commercial purposes, I don't know. But yeah, if you scrape it very much, they'll get suspicious of you. So this is one example where it's prohibited, but of course you always have APIs for the API access, and yeah, you have to pay for the data. It's the usual. So crawl delay, it's something that's optional, but it's very, very common in robots.txt. It tells us how many seconds do we have to wait between two concurrent requests. So if we are crawling all the pages on the web page, and if we have crawl delay, then we have to wait, for example, here 6 seconds between two GET requests that we do. We also have request rate, which is a bit rare, but is probably the same thing. 10 requests within 1 minute. It's not the same because you always have, in crawl delay, you have to wait at least 6 seconds, and then request rate, you have 10 requests per minute, and then you can make them all in 1 second and then wait for 1 minute, or you can make one every 6 seconds. It's something that's pretty common in robots.txt files, but yeah, if it's not there, it's usually good practice to put 1 or 2 seconds delay between the pages. So user agent, it's something that we've seen before in previous slides. It's the string that identifies us as web scrapers, our software. Everything that we use to access the web has user agents. So this is the part that web pages get when your part of software access them. And this is how it usually looks like for our browsers. So when we access the web by web browser means, it's like Mozilla 5.0, Windows 65. So the architecture and the browser, the browser version, and so on. That's something that our browsers send as a user agent. But for us, if we are doing web scraping scripts, it's usually good practice to put the user agent field, so the name of our crawler, and the second part, it's also good to put some contact details, for example, mail address in the from field or within user agent. So if we do anything that's not permitted, we can stay transparent, and then the administrators can contact us and say, yeah, you should tone it down a little bit. So user agents, for example, chatgpt.com has various user agents disallowed, but everything for all the others, it's permitted. You can also see which user agents are disallowed. Anthropic AI, so of course competitors are not allowed to scrape anything from OpenAI. The usual, it's the same story for all the big companies. And yeah, sitemap is something which we mentioned. We have two types of sitemaps. The first one is the TXT one, so the usual primitive list in a TXT file, but more often you'll see such kinds of XMLs. So we have data about all the URLs, how often they change, so change frequency, priority. Priority is, of course, for the main pages, not for blog posts and so on. And yeah, last modified. So we can have info if it's not modified from the last time that we scraped the page. We do not need to visit the page again. It's usually in such an XML form, but you can also see the graphical form. So with additional protocols, our web browser can turn the primitive XML into the graphical one. And the last mechanism is the visit time. It's something that's very rarely specified. I believe never in my life, I've been scraping the web for, I believe, 10 years. Never in my life have I seen the visit time parameter, but it's common practice. If you're doing a lot of GET requests, a lot of scraping, a lot of crawling on a web server, it's good practice to do it at night for of course, for the time zone of the web server, where the traffic is low, so you can stay incognito. And yeah, data privacy protection also regarding the legal stuff and the data that we are scraping. We should also comply to various laws that are more or less local. So of course for the EU, GDPR, for the US, DMCA, IP laws, copyright laws, and so on. CAN spam also relevant law for spam prevention. And of course, we should evaluate local laws. For example, in Serbia, it's the Zakon o elektronskim komunikacijama, so the law about electronic communications. It's the same thing. It's called the same thing in Croatia, and they are pretty similar. And they are similar in terms that they do not mention anything regarding web scraping. So yeah, for example, in Croatia and Serbia, you do not have anything about it, but in your country, you might. So be careful about that. And yeah, it's always advised to anonymize all data. If you don't need personal data, don't use the personal data. So anonymize it. Be transparent on how you use the data that you scraped. And of course, follow any licenses that apply. Regarding prerequisites that are usually good if you're trying to construct web scraping scripts, you need basic web development skills, basic web development knowledge about how HTTP works, and the usual trio for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, of course, more or less static or dynamic pages. XPath selectors, CSS selectors, this is something you'll use when you when you're locating things on the web page. And if you have lots of data which is unstructured, then you should get into regular expressions. It's also regexes are also a very good tool to find what you're looking for if it's a chaos all around. For HTTP, there are many status codes that you'll encounter, but the two basic ones are 200, so everything went okay, and 404, nothing has been found on that address, URL address, so you should reevaluate what you are scraping. And of course, if it's not you, it's me, then it's the 500 type errors. So internal server error is something that indicates that something is not quite right with the server. But yeah, everything functions in the same way. We usually do the get HTTP requests. There are also other post, put, delete, and so on. But we do a request and we get a response. That's the whole gist of it, and that's how it works. Of course, there are many challenges. If you're scraping something that you should not scrape, then you have anti-scraping measures such as those CAPTCHAs. But yeah, you can use CAPTCHA solvers, you can rotate proxies, you can spoof your user agent, but everything mentioned here is not polite scraping, so you should do this if you want to be on the other side of the law. And yeah, hope that you'll not get sued. This is something that people do, but it's not very advised. And of course, the second challenge is to construct web scrapers that are immune to changes. Never are web scrapers immune to changes because web servers update their web pages pretty regularly. And yeah, nowadays, a few companies in the world are working on the AI-powered, so rule-less web scrapers, which could scrape anything that they come into contact with. But yeah, it's pretty much primitive for now. And for now, we have to, as the web pages get updated, we also have to update our web scraping scripts. Now let's get into the web scraping cookbook, how to do it on an example, and into tools. We'll be quick, we have a few more minutes. How it works, we get on a page, we select the content, we located the robots.txt file already, we check the rules, data science conference allows all scraping, and then we see if we need to crawl, if we need various links, or we need just one. If For example, we need just one. I want to scrape all the presenters on the conference, and I want to scrape their LinkedIn profiles. I'm not going to visit LinkedIn profiles, but I'm going to scrape them or their URL addresses. So we do right-click, inspect element, we go into developer tools, and then we see such a thing where we can see the structure of the HTML, we see tags, we locate by tag, we locate by links. We also can use regular expressions or some logic to prove that these are LinkedIn or LinkedIn URLs, or we can go through all the URL links and highlight, and when we get the highlight, that this is what we need and this is what we have to scrape. That's a basic example, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So inspect element is the greatest tool that you have for web scraping regarding web browser checking. What to use for scraping? This is the whole toolset. So usually when we build scripts, we have requests and beautiful soup for static pages, and requests and Selenium for Selenium WebDriver for dynamic pages. We can also use Puppeteer, LXML for speed, Scrapey for bigger projects, and so on. And there are also no-code solutions, but you know the gist of it. What the disadvantages are for those. Just 4 more slides for each of the tools. Beautiful Soup, it's the most popular one. It's the most popular in terms of how much time you need to learn basic web scraping with it. And yeah, you can use for extra speed LXML, for extra leniency towards broken HTML. You can also use HTML5lib. It's pretty easy to learn, pretty easy to understand, and pretty easy to use. But it only parses static web pages, so if you have dynamically loaded content, it's going to be a problem. Scrapey, same thing. It's developed by a company called Zeit, or formerly Scraping Hub. They also developed the quotes to scrape page, which is pretty good. And I advise you, if you want to experiment with web scraping, then go to these pages. Those are constructed just for the sake of web scraping. It's a great tool, but yeah. It's highly scalable, but not that flexible. So if you need just a simple web scraping script, this is pretty much overkill for it. Scrapey Shell, also a great tool for learning. Selenium WebDriver, it's a tool that's designed for web browsing automation. So you can simulate everything that you do in web browsers. You can simulate through clicks, entry in text fields, and so on. And yeah, you can scrape also the dynamically loaded content, but it's pretty much slower because you have to load everything. You can also do headless browsing, so it doesn't load everything. It's a bit faster. It does it under the hood, and you don't see the browser opening up. And yeah, it's much more complex than Beautiful Soup. More things get done under the hood, but it's also pretty understandable. And for my last main slide, it's the tool comparison. You can see the downsides and upsides for all of them. If you need something quick, something simple, then go to Requests and Beautiful Soup. If you want to do the same simulation on what you're doing within the browser, then go to Selenium. And yeah, it's usually a combination of those two parts. All the tools that are mentioned here are very popular. They have great communities, so you'll have no problem on finding tutorials and pages about how to use them. And yeah, to summarize this presentation, be polite. It's the main lesson of the presentation regarding web crawling. So robots.txt. Identify yourself via user agent, check the terms of service, and yeah, put a crawl delay. Do not overload the servers, scrape and crawl at night, and so on. All the mechanisms that we mentioned. Regarding legality and data privacy, of course, be careful what you scrape and what you do with the data that you've scraped. And yeah, Beautiful Soup for static web pages, Selenium for dynamic. This is it for me. If you have any additional questions, you can contact me by mail, on LinkedIn, by a carrier pigeon, anything that you want, or you can find me here and we can talk about web scraping data or anything else. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Maybe we have time for one question, or
We have one question.
we have one question, yes, right?
Yeah. What is the impact of LLMs on web scraping? Is there any usage?
There is, of course, usage. LLMs were trained on probably hundreds of web scraping based data, but yeah, it's not that talked about, so we do not know how much and how they've done the web scraping. But yeah, it's a common use case nowadays. It's something that the LLMs were based on. And of course, as you've seen on the ChatGPT webpage, if you ban the competition, then you can ensure that the competition stays the competition. Yeah, I hope that answers the question, because it's not that talked about, so I do not have insider info for that part.
Okay.
We'll talk.
Thank you
After
very
the-
much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a part of Data Science
Thank you for having me.
Conference Europe 2024.
Thank you.